I find this so offensive.
In a cloud chilling with a beard.
The clown chewing. What the fuck are you talking about, bro?
Islam and why he rejects Christianity. Now, there's a lot of people saying that he only converted to Islam because Andrew Tate did, but I personally don't know the man's motives and won't jump to any conclusions. However, if he is being sincere in the reasons that he gives, then we should expect for Sneako to leave Islam and embrace Christianity by the time that he's done watching this video. The reason why is because the 5 reasons that he gives, if he wants to be consistent, are the very things that should actually cause him to reject Islam and instead become a Christian. So, don't believe me? I'll prove it. Let's start with his first reason.
Why I resonate with Islam, why it makes sense for me, because it's weird. It doesn't make sense to me to pray to a man. I don't want to submit to a man. The only person that we should submit to and that we should pray to should be the one creator of the universe, which is Allah. He created the universe and we
Well, for me, it's Jesus, so what's wrong about that?
love him for it. Perfect. That really, it makes the most sense to me.
So as you just heard, Sneako doesn't like the idea of submitting to a man and therefore decided to reject Christianity and to embrace Islam. But unfortunately, if Sneako really does have a problem with submitting to a man, then he should reject Islam. The reason why is because, according to the Quran, Sneako is actually commanded to submit to Muhammad, who's a man. So if this is a real reason for why Sneako rejects Christianity, then he should also reject Islam. But what's even more interesting is the reason that he gives for why he thinks that he should only worship Allah. He said that he only wants to worship Allah because Allah is God, Allah is the creator of the universe, and therefore we should love him for it. But ironically, in Christianity, Jesus is God, he created the entire universe, so why does Sneako have a problem with worshiping Jesus in Christianity? Well, the reason why is because Sneako seems to have a problem with Jesus being both God and man. Fair enough. So, for argument's sake, let's go ahead and say that Jesus isn't God and that he's only a man. So if you have to submit to a man in both Islam and Christianity, then who does Sneako think is the more rational person to submit to? On the one hand, we have Muhammad, who wasn't born of a virgin.
The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as a human being like the rest of us, do have sin.
Needed forgiveness for his sins.
The promise of God is that he does forgive sins, and his promise in the Quran is that he has forgiven the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for his sins past and future.
And according to Sneako, he wasn't perfect and did some questionable things.
Are you against grooming?
Yeah, it's gross.
How do you feel about like the fact that Muhammad married a 9-year-old girl?
I don't know how true that is.
But I don't think any Muslims deny it.
If that's true, then he's not. Then nobody's perfect.
So, if Sneako doesn't have a problem with
I was a fan of Sneako. I agree with everything he said, but bro, it doesn't make sense anymore.
submitting to a man like Muhammad, who, even according to him, wasn't morally perfect, then why would he have a problem submitting to someone like Jesus, who, even according to Islam, was born of a virgin, performed miracles, and wasn't a sinner? If submitting to a man really is a problem for Sneako, then he should reject Islam since it requires Muslims to submit to Muhammad. And if he decides to have a change of mind and conclude that he's actually okay with submitting to a man, then once we compare Jesus and Muhammad, even according to Sneako's own standards, then it makes a lot more sense for him to be a Christian and not a Muslim. Now, let's move over to another reason that Sneako gives for converting to Islam.
I like the fact that you pray 5 times a day in Islam. You're going to be more grounded. They take prayer more seriously than any other religion.
All right, now this is actually a really strange one because not too long after he recorded this video, he asked for guidance in this area and he said this.
I don't have the time to pray 5 times a day. Are you supposed to take all the steps fully? Are you supposed to fully dive into it, or can you
Is he making a joke of everything actually? I don't like the fact that so many influencers and people like Sneako, I mean, I like the guy. When he talks about other things like girls and things like that outside of the religion, it makes sense and I agree with him with almost everything what he said. But when influencers who don't really know about Christianity or Islam or whatever, I find it really offensive and they shouldn't be even talking about it because they're just not educated enough to talk about the faith.
what's the next move?
So now, it's pretty strange that
What's the next move?
he cites praying 5 times a day as something that he likes about Islam, which is ironically the same thing that he thinks that he can't do. Now, I'm not sure if he realizes
Yes.
that these prayers aren't prayers that spontaneously come from the heart. Instead, these prayers are just memorized sayings in Arabic, which is, of course, a language that Sneako doesn't understand. But if Sneako just likes a structure that comes with ritualized or memorized prayer, then he could have just stayed in his Catholic church since they have recited prayer as well. I mean, unless he just likes the fact that they pray 5 times a day. Well, if that's the case, then there's no reason that he couldn't set a clock, get down on his knees, and pray 5 times a day as a Christian. So if this really was a reason for why he converted to Islam, then he shouldn't be a Muslim since in Islam he's obligated to pray 5 times a day. And he even said himself that he can't meet all his obligations since he doesn't have the time for it. So instead of embracing Islam, he really should just embrace Christianity. The next reason that Sneako...
Well, should he embrace Christianity or Islam, that's on him. He should decide, but I mean, after 4 minutes of the video, bro,
consistently gives for why he rejects Christianity in favor of Islam is his problem with hierarchies.
Like why I never felt like Christianity spoke to me. For example, like there's a hierarchy in Christianity. They have, well, in Catholicism, they have bishops, they have priests, they have the Pope. There's like a power structure, like politics in the religion, which makes no sense. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in Islam, there is none. It's just we're all equal. We're all God's children.
So here Sneako says that he has a problem with hierarchies in Catholicism and therefore converted to Islam since there are no hierarchies in Islam and we're all children of God. All right, lots of issues with this one. First off, to say that he likes the idea that we're all God's children in Islam rather than Christianity is exactly backwards. The idea that God is our father and we're his children comes straight from Christianity. In fact, it's actually offensive to say such a thing in Islam since the best relationship that we can have with Allah is a slave-master relationship. Secondly, when it comes to him talking about hierarchies, it really depends on what he means when he says that. Now, I'm not a Catholic, so I won't speak to that, but the answer that his Muslim friends give him in response is virtually identical to the Christian position.
Although there will be levels, like for example, the imam or the sheikh will have a certain level, not over people in sight of God, but we listen to them because they have knowledge. People like the leader of the Islamic community, we listen to them because they're the leader. They were kind of put in place by God to make sure the community is safe, and they have responsibility. Just like a husband has responsibility for his wife and kids, there's a level of authority there. But it's not that, oh, he's better than us or God loves him more. You can have like a poor person who worships God, who's very loved by God because of their, devotion.
Okay.
Now, the only major difference here is that in Christianity, God loves you whether you're faithful to him or not, and if you're a believer or a non-believing sinner, which just isn't the case in Islam. So this means that if hierarchies are a problem for Sneako, then he should also reject Islam. And even more, since he likes the fact that we're all God's children, then he should not only reject Islam, but also embrace Christianity since that's a Christian concept, not an Islamic one. But the next reason that he gives creates an even bigger problem for his conversion.
What I like about Islam and why it's haram to draw Muhammad, and that's why I didn't really resonate with Christianity a lot growing up, because it's like they're all the images that they put of God. It doesn't make sense to me. We are not capable of visualizing what the creator of the universe looks like, what he's doing. Why is he in a cloud chilling with a beard?
in the cloud chilling. What the?
Why is he white? Why is God a dude? It doesn't make any sense. So there's no point in us even conceptualizing it because we can never have the capability to.
And no disrespect to the
Bro, this is disrespectful for
Catholics watching. I like the fact that Islam doesn't draw Muhammad, peace be upon him. You're not supposed to ever visualize that because he was not alive in our time. There's no way that we would know what he looked like, especially Allah, God. He's never drawn. We have no idea what he looks like, or because there's no way. Humans are too stupid. We would never. We're not mentally capable of understanding what God would look like.
We can't conceptualize.
We can't conceptualize. So it's not supposed to. In Christianity, I'll grow up and you have like God on a cloud, and it's like this guy with a white dude on a beard. He's like laying in a cloud.
White dude with a beard. Bro, I find this so offensive. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro?
He's like putting his hand down. Like, why?
What's so funny about that? Well, I believe that. I believe that's the God.
So, as you just heard, he thinks that it's wrong to draw God or Jesus or...
This is so disrespectful, bro. For real, man. Why nobody's saying anything about that? If you said something like this towards Islam, or you will be Bro,
or Muhammad, since we don't know what they actually look like. But if conceptualizing or visualizing God is a problem for Sneako, and not just backwards reasoning to come up with justification for why he's accepting Islam, then once again, Sneako has some serious problems. The first reason why is because, according to some Islamic teachers,
Allah described in the Quran that he has a face. Allah described in the Quran that he has two hands.
And both of Allah's hands are right hands.
We believe that both of the hands of Allah are what? Huh?
The hadith says very clearly that both his hands are right.
so you can clearly visualize him.
The saq here refers to Allah's shin. So he has a leg.
The Quran says that Allah has one eye.
Read Surah Qalam, Surah number 68, ayat number 42. The shin of Allah is mentioned.
In fact, Sheikh Uthman, the one who brought Sneako to his first mosque, he believes that Allah has body parts as well, although Shooter gets pretty fuzzy when he's pressed on exactly what those body parts look like. But here's the thing, even as I played those clips, if Sneako were listening to those Muslim leaders describing Allah, then it would actually be impossible for Sneako not to conceptualize Allah. So in other words, he would be doing the very thing that he gave as a reason for why he rejects Christianity. So
Well, himself.
now, unfortunately, Sneako's in a bit of a dilemma. He can either accept or reject these teachers' interpretation of those passages in the Quran and the Hadiths. If he rejects their interpretation, then he would have to interpret those passages as non-literal representations of God, which is the very thing that everyone knows is true about the paintings that he's referencing. No one thinks that those are actually real depictions of what God is supposed to look like. But regardless, if Sneako doesn't like pictures of God, then he can still reject those since those aren't a feature of Christianity. It's not as if these pictures are found in the Bible or they're part of any Christian teaching. Obviously, the Bible doesn't say that God is an old white man. But on the other hand, if he does accept those Muslims' interpretations of Allah, then he should reject Islam since he's against conceptualizing or visualizing God. And not only that, but he should also accept Christianity because, even as Mufti Abdullah says, the Quranic depiction of Allah is far worse than God being pictured as a white man.
Yeah, honestly, that is not good. They've got some picture of some kind of a gremlin.
And last but definitely not least is perhaps the most absurd of them all. The fifth reason that he gives for rejecting Christianity and embracing Islam is the fact that the Bible's been changed and the Quran hasn't. But you're probably wondering to yourself right now, why would that be the most absurd of all of his claims, since that's a claim that Muslims often make? Well, it's not the ignorance of the claim that makes it the most interesting, but instead it's the way that he argues for it. So the context here in this clip that I'm about to play is that Sneako is having a debate with Gideon on Islam and Christianity, and Sneako is coming across as if he literally doesn't know any of the basics of the Bible.
What's the chapter and verse of that?
Matt, verse 39.
What's the chapter?
I don't know. There's been so many There's so many different versions of the Bible, bro.
What other versions of the Bible are there, Sneako?
There's so many, bro.
Okay, tell me some.
Okay, let's look up versions of the Bible. We have the King James Version, the English Standard Version, the New American Standard, the New English Bible.
You know the funny thing about all those different versions, Sneako?
What?
They're all just different translations, buddy.
He has nothing to say. He has literally nothing to say about that. But still he does not accept Christianity because the Bible has been changed.
But it gets worse.
Most people haven't read the original version. Have you heard of the Council of Nicaea? There's been a lot of chapters that have been removed, and the Bible's been tampered and manipulated with a lot over the years. Well, they did remove the Council of Nicaea from the original Bible. A lot of people haven't read those parts of the Bible.
Council of Nicaea? What are you? You're saying there's a book called the Council of Nicaea?
Yeah.
There's not no book called the Council of Nicaea.
It's not a whole book, but it's. Let's see.
What is it then?
So, as you just heard, Sneako rejects the credibility of the Bible in favor of Islam because they removed the book of the Council of Nicaea from the Bible. Now, for anyone who knows literally anything about church history, they know that the Council of Nicaea is not a book, but instead it's a council. Now, ordinarily, it wouldn't be a big deal that he's ignorant on Christianity and Islam since he's a new convert, but that's not the point. The point is, this is a problem since the reasons that he converted are based on the ignorance of Islam and Christianity. So after taking a second to Google the Council of Nicaea, Sneako says this.
There's no book of... What?
There is no historical basis for the idea that Nicaea established in the canon and created the Bible.
The council called the Council of Nicaea that manipulated the original Bible.
All right,
it's right.
Pause
in
right there
front
for a
of your
second,
white
because
eyes.
what's so insane about this is that even on his screen, on the front page of his Google search, it says there is no historical basis for the idea that Nicaea established the canon and created the Bible. It's literally right there on his screen and it's highlighted. And this means that not only is he not reading the screen, but it also means that he didn't even take the time to do a 2-second Google search on the Council of Nicaea before deciding that this was his reason for rejecting Christianity and embracing Islam. So now when it comes—
Let me make something clear. They're rejecting Christianity because they live in America, bruv. It's crazy what they're doing there. It's like so disrespectful for every single... I mean... in every single way is this disrespectful. They are putting a flag of transgender LGBTQ plus flag in the church, everything. It's crazy, but he has so many fans, and when he is disrespectful towards Christianity, well, all of his fans are going to be. So, you know, show some respect at least. I don't care. He can be Muslim. He can be. It doesn't matter, but show some respect, man. Every single argument that he gave is like, it doesn't make any sense, it's not true.
To his point about the Bible being changed at the Council of Nicaea, honestly, I feel bad for him. He's likely just repeating Muslim slogans about this, not realizing that this actually comes from a Dan Brown novel and not actual history. If anyone decides to go look up the actual history, then like Sneako, it would only take you really 2 seconds to learn that the Council of Nicaea literally had nothing to do with determining what books went into the Bible and what books didn't. In fact, the council wasn't even about the books of the Bible. Instead, it was about the Arian heresy. So honestly, I think that Sneako was misled here by some Muslim apologists who either knew or should have known better. But again, let's be charitable because I'm a charitable guy and I'm feeling really charitable today. So let's say that Sneako is right that they actually did remove books from the Bible at the Council of Nicaea. Well, the problem with that claim is that we literally have tens of thousands of quotes from church fathers citing the scriptures long before, and we have dozens of manuscripts from before the Council of Nicaea was even a thought. So if someone really did change the Bible at the Council of Nicaea, then it would be pretty easy for textual critics to know what they changed and to fix it. We wouldn't be relying on the Council of Nicaea to know what was in the Bible anyway. And of course, when it comes to the Old Testament, then Sneako has also been deceived in believing that the Old Testament was changed as well, when in reality, history once again shows us that it wasn't. For a long time, the earliest manuscripts of the Old Testament that we had were from the 10th century AD. But once we found the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, we found Old Testament manuscripts that were more than 1,000 years older than the ones that we previously had. So of course, this gave us the opportunity to see if the Old Testament manuscripts that we had been changed or not. But once we compared them with one another, they proved to be virtually exact. So not only do we know that the New Testament wasn't changed, but we also know that the Old Testament wasn't changed either. And by the way, Sneako, if you're watching this, I'd love to have a conversation with you in private or in public about this, so reach out to me if you're interested. Sneako then goes on to argue that the reason why he converted to Islam is because there's only one Arabic Quran that hasn't been changed at all.
You know a book has never been manipulated? You know a book has no 30 different versions of it?
Why is his face so happy?
What book?
The Quran. Stay consistent for 1400 years. I'm just giving you a reason why I
You gave not a single reason that's actually true.
Believe in the Quran more because I can...
Because it's popular to believe in Quran at this time? I mean, I have nothing against Islam or this or that, because one of my best friends is Muslim, a real Muslim. He's born Muslim, so the true one. I have literally nothing against. I have only against people who don't have any faith in anything. When someone don't believe God, I just can't really go along with that person. There's so much evil in the world that if you don't believe that there is something good, that there is God, so I mean, don't talk to me.
Can be certain that this hasn't been tampered with the way the Bible has. But the original text of the Quran has never been tampered with, has never been manipulated. And this is the one that you could always go to. It's the same, it's consistent. for 1400 years.
And I was planning on responding to this claim to show how, once again, this should cause him to reject Islam and to embrace Christianity. But then I thought, you know what? I know someone who could answer this claim far better than I could. And so I called my friend David Wood and I asked him if he would cover this point. And let me tell you, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for Sneako, then comes David's video. Go ahead and click here to see what I mean. And the next time that you give reasons for converting to Islam without understanding Islam or Christianity, what are you gonna say?
I personally don't have anything about people who are converting into Muslims or Orthodox Christian or Catholic. It doesn't matter as long as you believe in something, that there is good, there is God on the earth. But when people don't really understand what they're talking about inside of the religion they are in, or they're making statements, especially popular people like Sneako, making statements like that, and that video is going to have so many views, it's like false, it's not true. I will actually react to the next video to see if the Quran is ever changed or not, and yeah.